So let's get started here because we have so much to talk about and it's going to be so much fun. All right, so let's get started. Today's webinar is Streamline Your Client Experience with Katie McFarlan. I'm so excited. This is so important. You can't grow without streamlining your processes, and your client experiences is one of the most important ones. I'm going to mute everybody here. And hold on just for a second. All right, so just to get started, some housekeeping. If you have any questions during the presentation, type them into the chat and we will answer them at the end of the presentation during the Q&A. We also have Taylor on board today, and she is going to help if you're having any technical problems, or if you're have questions, or put it in chat and she's going to be helping you answer them, or making sure that we answer them at the end of the presentation. So if you don't know who we are, we help interior designers get found online, win their dream clients, and streamline their processes. Our team, I'm Debra, and Ashley, my project manager, Taylor's helping us. She does a million things for us. We also have writers, another designer, a whole programming team. We help guide your business to success with branding, websites, marketing, local SEO, and improved processes. So I'm going to share with you one of our brand transformations, and I'm super excited because Holly is with us today. She might not have even known that I was showing her off. So this was her website before, and oh my gosh, she does absolutely gorgeous work. She is so amazing, and this is her after. And I just love like how it turned out. And I always tell people, like, if you're a prospect searching online for an interior designer that's near you, and you come to a business, you open a website and it looks like this was a home page, and then you open another website and it looks like this, who are you going to contact? Like, who are you going to trust more? Who, looks more professional, looks like they're not doing it as a hobby? Who are you going to expect to pay more? Like, you're going to expect that this company is going to charge more for their services, and you're going to trust that they're going to deliver those services versus this company. And it's the same work. Right? So it's how you're being perceived online that can make a really big difference. All right, so I'm gonna let Katie jump in just for a second to introduce herself and tell you a little bit about her company, and then we'll get going.
Great. Thank you so much for having me today. And I'm super excited to talk with your designers. And I see some that I recognize in the participant list. So that's super exciting. So just want to give a heads up. I am recovering from COVID. So I have a little residual cough, so that might carry through. I will try to mute myself if I have enough advance warning for it. But so what I do is I work specifically with interior designers and also wedding planners. And what I help them do is just streamline their backend operations. And we primarily do that with a focus on the client experience and that process. And then just through their other processes that they create for their business. So my background, just very quickly, I used to be a wedding planner. I had my own wedding planning company, and this type of work, I think, really is so similar in that there's the beautiful side of it, the design oriented side of it. And then there's also that, for me, doing weddings, it was really heavily with the project management, coordination, the logistics. So I'm able to bring my experience from that and apply it to the design industry, which I think is, again, very similar to the wedding planning industry. So just very excited to be here, and I could talk all day about client experience. So hopefully you all enjoy it, and I would love to answer any questions that you guys have. So definitely put them in the chat so we can answer them at the end.
Perfect. Yep. I'm so excited. And I think it's really interesting, the connection between like weddings and interior design. Because they both, they're both like designing a space and an experience, and they're both, have a lot of moving parts, right?
Well, and I think too, the big thing that I find is that you're putting a lot of trust in somebody up front and paying them up front, but you're not going to get your results for a long time. And in this industry specifically, that's why it's so important to have a streamlined process. So your people feel reassured that like, hey, I paid you X amount of thousands of dollars, and I'm not going to see the investment until a year. So they want to know, like, all along the way that they're feeling good. Like, well, I made the right choice. I'm being reassured because this process is so on point. So I think it's it's incredibly important for the luxury service providers, who are on this call and this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are some really good points. So today's agenda: streamline your client's experience. We'll be covering how to streamline your services, operations, and processes to improve your client experience so that you can raise your rates, avoid mistakes, and focus on doing what you love. I think that I'm going to repeat that. Like, you can't raise your rates. You can't bring on, you could raise your rates if your whole experience is better, right? You're going to make more money. You're going to, your clients are going to be happier. You're going to get more referrals. You're going to be less stressed. You're going to have better quality control. There's just so many benefits. I could go on. We'll discuss onboarding, proposal process tips, setting boundaries, ways to ask for feedback, and so much more. This is a huge part of how to become successful as a business. So I just really want to understand this. What is formalizing your client's experience? So
formalizing your client experience. So for me, what I always say to my clients is, you have a process, you have a client experience, whether you have it written down or you think you do or you don't, right? Because it's whatever your clients are doing from the second they inquire through your website to that first discovery call, to getting a proposal from you, to working with you, all the way throughout. So I like to say, you're already doing something. So look at what you're currently doing and then formalize it, make it easier and more professional in the sense of, okay, when someone inquires through your website, have a process for what goes out to them. If these are my services, this is my pricing, this is my timeline, this is when I can start, create a beautiful document that goes out to them that says, here's all this information. And then again, at the next, your proposal phase, have that process formalized in the sense that you can look at your checklist and say, okay, these are the 5 things I do for proposals. I grab my proposal template, I fill it in with the scope, I update the pricing, I, do whatever you need to do. And then I send it in an email. Here's the email I send out with my new proposals. So, and then a process for following up. So again, I think for me, when I look at that with my clients, we look at each of the phases, like those high touch phases that you're already doing them, right? You're already taking your clients through them. So how can we just formalize it, make a process for it, and have it so it's cohesive across the board? So every client is going to get the investment guide. Every client is going to get the proposal, whether it's a full service proposal or a designer for a day proposal or a new build proposal. They're all going to get that. When they're onboarded, they're all going to get a welcome packet, right? So again, formalizing it so every client has this consistent experience, and then you on the back end have this simple process that you take your clients through that your team can then follow. So again, it's really all about, documenting it and then having professional pieces that go out along the way.
Yeah, that is so important. And I know we're a huge, big fan of that. In fact, Ashley, my project manager, she has it always on her list to do, create so many processes every week,
Yes.
So, because you can't sit down and create all your processes at once. It's just too much. So, when you're think about, like, for everything you offer, having a process for that. So, and then having a master document where you can, like, organize it so you can find those processes. But it's so important. I love what you said about, creating steps and starting to map that out. And we find that for each type of service that we're offering, typically has different steps,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, well, and I think that's another thing too that I see with a lot of my clients is they can do anything for anyone when we start working together. And I'm like, okay, well, that's awesome. And I'm sure you can, but one, do you want to? And two, do you have the back end like capabilities to manage all of that? Because every service really probably has a different contract, probably should have a different questionnaire, should have a different, maybe a welcome gift or, kickoff meeting or structure, delivery time, all of that your team needs to know, that you need to know, that the client needs to know. So for every service type you offer, there's going to be a process with that and back end, system or deliverables. So I always like to reduce down, like, as much as we can, like, what services do your clients actually need? And then what services do you want to sell and what overlaps? So now we can have less processes. Like, I just had a designer, we went from, like, I feel like 20 services down to like 10, which was still a lot. But I'm like, look at how much less backend you have to manage, because anytime there's a change or an improvement or client feedback, you have to go into your systems and update all of that. And that's a lot. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the key is to like you said, to not offer as many services. Like, if you're offering so many services, you can't keep the processes and the client experience, like, updated, because there's too many. And you also can't get really, really good at delivering. If you have 3 services, you can get, like, really, really good at those services. Whereas if you're too diversified, it's too hard to get, like, really, set up that process. So it's like,
exactly. I mean, if you can do anything for anyone, how can you train your team? You can't, because the sky's the limit. I can't possibly train someone if we can do anything anyone requests. So it is really important to have, I think, less is more. And I think from a client side, you always want to think about that, right? When your customers are coming to you, like, they might not, most likely they've not hired a designer before, or if they did, it wasn't a full service designer. And so they don't know what to expect. They don't know what they need. And they're going to think they need whatever the smallest services you offer, because they're going to think, oh, this isn't going to take that long. It should be quick. I see all your beautiful pictures. That's so easy for you. But if you're like, we have 30 different services, they're going to be so confused. And this from the web design aspect, like, you confuse and you lose, right? Like, they're going to get on your site and be like, I don't know what I need, but this is too stressful. And what I find with my designers, customers, is they want it to be easy, right? Like, I've had this design spinning around in my head for months. I've been wanting to redo my kitchen. It has already taken up so much brain space. I want this project to be easy, and that's why I'm hiring somebody, right? So you start right from that first inquiry, right from when they first see you and your website, like, clear, concise, like, we're going to make it so easy for you to show up. We're going to let you know this is the service that's going to be best for you. And then we're going to just take it from there and guide you through it. So definitely agree.
And I know we already talked about some of the benefits, but do you have any other, like, benefits?
Yeah, definitely. So, again, when you actually, like, sit there and map it out, right? And so I always just recommend, the next time you do it, just start writing it down. If you're about to jump on a discovery call, like, write down, what did I do? What did I send them? What were the questions I asked, right? Like, just write it down as you do it. And it can just be in a notebook, something super simple. So once you do that, now you can, if you want, you can hand that off to somebody else. You don't have to be the person to do it. So a lot of times when we're doing this with our clients, is we identify, okay, of your 100-point design process, you only need to do 15 of those points. Like, you are doing 85 other ones that you could hand off to an assistant or an admin or a studio manager or something like that. It doesn't have to be you unless you want it to be, right? And that's what's so beautiful about it, is one, you get to identify, like, oh, I don't have to do, like, all of this stuff. And you can see where you can bring someone else in. And now, because you have it documented, you can give them that process and say, here's the process, go through it. And now you know how to do it. So I don't have to, right? So when you are ready to bring someone in, you've already got all that stuff mapped out for them. So it's really going to be a couple times they're going to use your process checklist to run through it, make sure they know what they're doing. And then it's a full on handoff. So even if you don't have anyone on your team now, I always like to say, you know, start as you mean to go on. If you know you're eventually going to bring on a team or even just one person, like I think every designer should have one person to do their orders because ordering, tracking, client updates, claims, it could be a full-time job based on your volume. But I just think start as you mean to go on. And even if it's just pick the thing you hate the most, right? The hardest thing for you, and start processing that out so you can give that to somebody as soon as possible, right? You give them that process. Maybe it takes them 1 or 2 hours a week. And now you're going to pay an assistant a lower rate. And now you can take that 1 or 2 hours a week and bill that out at your design fee. You can sell products, or you can just take that 2 hours a week off and be with your family. That might even be more priceless than the money you would make, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, I think definitely having a formal process allows you to delegate and see what you can give to somebody else, which now that's going to shift your workload, right? So a lot of designers, I'm constantly spinning my wheels. I'm stuck in the weeds. Well, if you can give up parts of your process that aren't designed, then now your design load goes up. Even if your client load doesn't go up, even if your projects don't increase, if you're doing less admin, that means you have more time to do more design work, right? Whether that's even just putting together flat lays that you love and that inspire you for your social media, or, you know, like getting inspiration by going to your showrooms and things like that. Like your job will change very quickly because now you have more time to focus on the design work, right? By just giving some of those other tasks that you don't have to do. So I think that's one, right? The team side. And then when you have a formal client experience in place, it makes it really easy for your clients. Like they're like, this is so easy. This was a no-brainer. You made everything so easy. You were a step ahead. So it's going to be really beneficial for your clients. And then as a designer, you're going to feel so much more in control because you have this process to fall back on. It really, especially for solos, to have a process in place, it makes you feel like you're not so alone in your business. Like if I just follow my checklist and do what I mapped out, then everything is going to be as good as it can be, right? Like I know that I did the best I could with this project, right? Because I followed the steps. So yeah, so those are just a couple of the benefits.
Yeah, there's so many. I know for us, like we're really, really big into processes because I actually run 2 businesses, Home Designer Marketing and Friday Marketing, you know, so like we have a ton of clients. Ashley runs all of them, and there's no way we could do it if we didn't have like really streamlined processes. And I love what you said about hiring people, because typically, like, you know, companies will hire somebody and then they'll be disappointed because the person didn't live up to their expectations. And like my thought on that is they probably didn't have the processes in place to train the person to set that person up for success. So you need to have the processes set. Like if I ever say to Ashley, hey, we need to hire somebody, she's like, well, we can't do anything till we have the processes set up for them.
Yep.
You know, that's like number one, because they're going to come on and they're not going to know what to do. And I also would recommend, like, if you are bringing somebody on, bring on somebody opposite from you. If you're a creative and you're kind of like all over the place, but you're amazing at being creative, you probably need to bring somebody on. Either it's like a team of somebody like Katie or like us, or even hiring somebody that is more of a checklist type of person, a process person that could handle the back end. There's a great book called Rocket Fuel. I don't know if you've heard of that, Katie,
Yeah.
but it's like the visionary and the integrator. It's definitely the creative and the checklist person.
Yep.
You need both. Like you can't be all creatives or you're going to have too many ideas and never go anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you need someone who's going to say, that's a great idea, let me run with it. And also you need someone to say, that's a good idea, but not right now.
Yeah, like we already
okay,
have so many ideas.
yes,
Like we're already focused on this idea. I like
yes,
that one, but let's put it on the back
one thing at
burner.
a time. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what are the steps to formalizing your client's experience? How would you suggest getting started?
Yeah, so we kind of briefly talked about it, right? Is you already have a process. So it's essentially, for me, the way I map it out with my clients is, I believe especially for my designers and my wedding planners, like every client, you're taking them through the same phases, whether the process and the deliverables are different, right? So I like to look at it like there's the inquiry phase, right? So they're not a client, they've just inquired. There's going to be sending out like initial, screening information with pricing, your timeline, all of that. There's a follow-up process, discovery calls. Maybe you do a consultation. So there's your inquiry phase process, right? So I like to actually like look at that and say, okay, what happens here? Like, what is your company policy on this? Even if you're a solo, you have a company policy. Like, do you do 15-minute discovery calls? Do you never do consultations? Are consultations always paid? Are they sometimes not paid? Like, is there a travel fee? All of that, right? So I would say, look at that first phase is the inquiry phase. Then we move over, in my mind, to you can have a proposal phase if you want, where you send them the proposal. And then now you're, again, following up with them until they sign and all of that. Then I look at it like you have the onboarding phase, which I think is just a pivotal and super critical phase of the design process, because you are working with these clients for so long that getting them started on the right foot is so, so important, because they probably haven't done this before. And if they have, it hasn't been with you. And if you're here today and you're focused on your client experience, like other designers aren't, and you're going to be a different service provider than they've ever had. So I think having a formal onboarding process. So again, once the client pays and signs, you now send them welcome materials. Like, here's how to make the most of our time together. Here's what you can expect. Here's what I need from you. Here's the timeline, right? Answer all those questions up front so they know what's next. So again, so many benefits to that. Then we move into your design phase, right? So maybe your design phase is going to have multiple parts. Maybe you're going to have a kickoff meeting, and that's phase one. And after the kickoff meeting, maybe you do some general floor plans, right? So that's the next phase of that process. So then you move over into your design phase, like concept and, final design presentation, or maybe you just do one design presentation. Then once that's approved, you move over into your install, project management, and then your project management, procurement, and then install, then offboarding. So I like to phase it out like that. So that way you can look at each of those areas and plug your projects in to see, okay, how many projects do I have in onboarding? How many do I have in design phase? How many do I have in procurement, project management? So I like to, again, phase them out and then look at each of those phases and see, okay, what does the client need to know? What's happening? What's the timeline of this phase, right? I feel like that is so important right now, because we don't know the timeline. And, even when you have a timeline from your vendors, it's subject to change at any time. You can't make any guarantees right now. But I think just putting your best foot out there and saying, okay, the design phase, our process is it's a 6 to 8 week turnaround for your design. We'll reach out, a couple weeks in advance to schedule your design presentation. The procurement phase could take anywhere from 8 weeks to 2 years. I don't know. But during the procurement phase, we're going to place all your orders. We're going to send you updates every week, every other week, every month, whatever. So you always know the status of your project. So again, laying out those timelines for each of the phases and then letting your clients know like what you're going to be doing during that time. So again, it's just going to reduce the amount of emails. Like, what's happening next? Do I need to do anything? When's this thing coming? Because they know, oh, she's going to send us an email every week. I don't need to email her. So again, looking at each of those phases and seeing like, what are the questions your client is going to have? What's happening on the back end? And what are some ways you can, stay in front of it for your client? So, and then filling in those blanks, right? Like, okay, here's the step-by-step things that we're doing behind the scenes. Here's the client-facing things that are happening by way of email communication or, project update emails, things like that. So as you're going through each of those phases, you'll identify, okay, at onboarding, I need to be sending them a design questionnaire. At offboarding, I need to be sending them a feedback questionnaire. So you start to identify the different pieces that you need to create to formalize that process. And if you maybe need to create a beautiful branded, PDF to send out, like, okay, hey, your install is coming. Here's an installation guide. So you know exactly what to expect during your installation. Now, again, you don't have to do all of those things, right? You don't have to do all of that. I think it's more formalizing it. So you have a formal checklist for each of the phases. Okay, in inquiry phase, this is what happens. In proposal, this is what happens. And then, building from there, adding in any templates or documents or links that you use at each of those phases. So it's easy for you as the designer, as the business owner, to just be like, oh, I'm just going to go through this checklist. Everything's right here. I'm not searching through 100 tabs and trying to find that email that I sent that I loved, that was so good, and now I want to use it again. And then you have everything in one place. So now you can just give it to your team too, because you're like, hey, you get to do these 5 parts of the process, and I do the design part, my favorite, and install day. Those are my 2 favorite parts. So that would be super high level steps to formalizing the client experiences. Again, through those phases.
That is so good. There's so much good information in there. And it reminds me of like setting up your client for success.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about the types of clients you have, and you want like A+ clients, right? Ones that you love to work with. Well, when you have a client that is maybe a C client, or you're frustrated with the client, is it really the client? Or is it that you don't have the processes in place to train the client to show up as an A+ client?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Well, and I think when you're formalizing your client experience, like, yeah, it's about your firm and your process and how you want to do business, of course. But it's also, you have to consider your client. Like, who are they? Do they want a lot of meetings, or do they not have time for that? Do they want a weekly check-in email, or is that stressful for them? Like, what do they want, and who are they? What are they coming to with expectation wise, right? And then building your client experience so it serves those clients while also serving your company and just making things easier for everybody. But yeah, absolutely. Setting the client, I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Like, yeah, there's so many benefits on the back end, but definitely setting those expectations is so key. Because again, your clients just don't know, like, they've never done this before. And I know, and you all know, there's a million different business models for interior designers. There's a gajillion ways you could do it, right? And none of the ways are wrong. But if a client has worked with a designer who just does hourly as needed, it's going to be very different than the designer who does flat fee and then a retainer for project management. Like, that's going to feel different. So it's our job as the business owner to let clients know, here's how you can get the most out of our time together. And who doesn't want that? Oh my gosh, who doesn't want to know? I'm paying $20,000 for a designer. I want to make sure that I am making the most of it, and that I'm never late to the table with something, and then it causes you a delay, and now I missed out on something. So
yeah, like, how can you train them, like, in that communication, training them to show up? Like, maybe you don't want to be text on the weekend, or maybe you want, like, I definitely, when somebody comes on with us, I'm going through a list of the things that they could do to make their experience with us more successful, right? So having that set up in your processes, and however you're, whether you're emailing it out or whatever, but they're so important, and they're going to help the client be more successful. But if you don't have the steps, right, they're not going to, like, they're going to be frustrated because they're not going to know what the next step is. And they might even regret hiring you.
Yep. Well, and it forms every other decision and opinion they have throughout the process, right? Like, if they're already nervous, they're going to go into presentation nervous, which means they're probably not going to wholeheartedly be like, yes, put it all in the cart. They're going to be nervous. They're going to need to think about it a little bit more, versus if they had this amazing experience and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so easy, so awesome. Like, they're looking for the good. When they're frustrated, they're starting to look for the bad. And then they're not going to be as willing to just say, put it in the cart, buy it all, right? Like, no, we need more time to think about this, because we have a chip on our shoulder and we don't want to make this easy for you anymore, right? So yeah, it's twofold for sure.
Yeah. So such good information. What are the key components of a strategic client experience process?
Yeah. So we kind of briefly talked about it, right? So again, looking at those different phases of your process and having something formalized to send out that is, again, client focused and helps to helps your company, right? So it's helpful in the sense of, it's strategic in the sense that it's designed to, one, screen out clients who aren't a good fit for you, and then two, to set the expectation, and like you said, to train your clients so they're going to be A clients throughout the process, right? Because again, they don't know what they don't know. Like, oh, I'm not supposed to go shopping and pick things out and show it to you. Like, I don't know. That's what I did when I worked with this other design consultant, and they loved it. So again, it's, I think for me, the key components are sending out an investment guide, right? So that's going to be the thing that goes out right when someone inquires from your website. And you can automate this. You can have a hidden page redirect on your website to, your beautiful PDF that essentially talks about your services that you offer, shares your pricing. Even if you're like, I don't want to share my pricing, I'm huge on this, like share your minimum then. Okay, what's your minimum? Is it your design fees begin at 5,000? You must have one full room. You must have a project budget of 10,000 or more for furniture. Like, set some sort of like minimum so they can screen themselves out. If they're like, I wanted to spend $1,000 on this room, there is no need for you to get on a call with them if that does not fit your ideal client and what types of services you offer. So again, you have this investment guide that screens them, right? So it strategically screens out people who aren't a good fit. It shares a little bit about your process and your timeline, and that all orders must go through us, or all orders can go through retail. Share those bits of information that will be like a deal breaker for a potential client. So you have that's the investment guide that goes out before you get on a call with somebody, right? Because essentially you want them to see this stuff and they might say, this is perfect. This is exactly in line with what I'm expecting to spend. I have the timeline for it. I want to work with you. This looks great. Mm-hmm. So then you get them on the discovery call, and now it's going to probably be a higher converting discovery call, right? It's going to be easier. You're not going to be selling. You're just going to be talking, learning about their project. So that would be the first part, right? Is having that investment guide. Then I think the second part of it is having the welcome materials, right? To me, that is like the number one most important thing that you can have. And I do see a lot of designers that don't overlook it. They know it's important, but it's hard. It's hard to put it together. You don't have time, you're busy. So with the welcome packet, that's going to be once they sign and pay, you send them over onboarding materials, right? Like, here's again, how you can make the most of our time together. Here's what I need from you. Here's what you can expect from us. So that would be the second component of the, strategic client experience. Again, it's letting them know again about, timelines now, more specifically, the things that you need from them, when you need them, what like your revision policy is, all of those details. Again, those are in your contract, but you have them now in this beautiful document that's going out. They're super excited. They're the most engaged because like they just sent over this chunk of money and they're like so eager to get started. So this welcome guide, one, it serves as a great thing to give them, to train them, set the expectation, but also it's something they instantly get. So if you're on a wait list and you're not starting projects for 4 months and somebody pays you today to confirm their spot for, May, it could feel a little bit like, well, I just paid you and I got nothing, right? Like when I buy something, I kind of want something. It's that instant gratification. So by having a welcome process in place, an onboarding process in place where they get something, even if it's an email with a PDF, they're still getting something and they're really excited, right? So it calms their fears of, oh my gosh, I just spent X thousands of dollars on this project. And like, can I even wait? Should I have just gone to Pottery Barn? Like, what am I doing? It gives them something that's like, hey, you're in the right place. We're professional. We've got you. Like, this is the process. Here's some ways you can start preparing. So they instantly get something, right? So that would be the second part of a strategic client experience is, again, that is setting them up. And by setting them up for success, you're setting your team up to have a better experience with this client, right? And then again, I love to know what to expect, right? I am very process minded. So I always want, and I'm a little anxious, right? I always want to know, like, well, what's next? Like, when's this happening? How much are we going to have to pay now, then? So I like to have those big beefy emails of what to expect emails that go out throughout the process, right? So if you, within your process, you have these big key milestone meetings, like I said, a client kickoff, or maybe you have a site measure meeting, or you do a trade day, or you do a concept meeting, write out the big email that lets clients know what to expect at each of those meetings. How long are they going to be? Who should be there? Do I need to pay? Am I paying anything? Like, am I expected, should I be bringing a checkbook? Like, when's the next payment due? Do you need anything from me? Where is it taking place? What's happening? Do I need to be ready to make a decision? All of that. So I think all of those, again, they're strategic in the sense that they're preparing your client. on the back end, they're kind of telling you what to do, telling you and your team what needs to be done for these meetings, right? And then also it's going to reduce questions, confusion, frustrations from your clients. So when I work with my clients and we formalize their client experience, some of the feedback I got is, I feel like something's wrong. No one's emailing us. It's like, no, it's because everything is right. Like your clients aren't confused. And I've had clients who are like, oh my gosh, like there's just like no emails coming in. Like they just have everything they need. It feels so weird. So it's strategic in that it's really going to cut down on that being in your inbox and drowning in those emails. And then again, once you get over to the offboarding process, like not so much strategic, but strategic with an offboarding process, because one, you want to let them know you're done, because right now we're not ever finishing projects, right? I'm not a designer, but like we collectively, me and my designers, like we're currently not finishing our projects like we used to. So you might have an install, but then you still have 7 pieces of furniture coming, or the window treatments are late or whatever. So we want to still let clients know, like we're done. We fulfilled the terms of our contract. So with that offboarding process right now in this COVID time, I think it's really important to let clients know, hey, we're done, right? Say it in a nice way. We're done. I know we have a couple items outstanding. We're going to keep an eye on them. We'll let you know when they arrive. We'll coordinate the delivery on your behalf. But, but essentially, like we're done. We'd love to know what you thought about working together. Here's our feedback form. Can you leave a testimonial? Whatever your process is. But having something formal and strategic in the sense that it lets them know, like, you're not going to call me and ask me like, oh, what should I do here? And I brought this thing. Should I put that over here? Like whatever those questions are, right? Where all of a sudden you still have open items and they think they can just keep emailing you and calling you. So it's strategic in that it like formally wraps it up in a really nice professional way. And it lets your clients know like, we're done. So those I think would be the key components of a strategic client experience.
That was, there were so many points I just want to add. And I know that I just want to add a couple of things. One is, think about every time that, your customer or your prospect like interacts with your brand, whether it's like online or you're sending them out emails or the onboarding packets, really make sure that they're looking professional and your brand is looking professional. So it doesn't look like you're doing it as a hobby. Like having that professional representation of your brand at every touch point is going to build a ton of, trust in your company and in you. And it's going to help them feel more confident in the decision that they've made.
Yep.
And then also, I just wanted to say that for us, like one thing that we do, I know Ashley does it every Monday, is she sends out an email to all our clients that we're working with, like all the projects that we're on. And it has like in the email, it's super simple to digest actually, but it has like the top part is bold and in color. It's like what she needs from you. The middle part is what we're working on, and the bottom part is what has been done. So it's super easy for them, and they're not like, if you haven't had a meeting with them for a while, they're like, okay, like they're still working on stuff, and this is where we're at, and it will help like relax their like fears, right? And give them a better experience.
But I think that just all goes into the trust factor that you brought up, right? Is when they feel really like they can trust you, like their best interests are at the forefront of your mind, they go into their buying decisions with that trust as well. They know, you know what, I don't really love this piece, but you have been so spot on at every other point of this process. Mm-hmm. I'm going to trust you. Because I actually believe you know better than you know better than I do, right? That trust is going to carry through to all of the interactions, right? Is like, they're not questioning you. And I think we've all had that experience. You reach out to a brand, you want to work with them, and they send something messy back, and then it's a little confusing, and you're like, you're charging me what? Like, no, I don't want to do that. And then you look for it. You look for you look for proof that you were right. So I think, the trust thing is huge. Consistency, cohesiveness. And again, you're the designer, like you're this like magic. I mean, truly you're like this magical person who can transform spaces. Right. And like it just helps them trust that process because they have to have trust in you because of the work you're doing.
And when you're meeting with clients or prospects, you might think that, you know, they're just looking at you and you're the one building trust, but that is actually not true. It's your brand being professional, being consistent. It's having the client experience like branded, looking professional, consistent. It's like having how you're communicating with them that is building trust. So there's several different trust factors. The more they trust you, the better client they're going to be for you. And also the more referrals you're going to get because they've had such a good experience. I know that we just have maybe 10 minutes left for slides. So we'll get through as many as we can, but I think we've already been talking about so many good points. What mistakes do designers typically make when it comes to their sales calls?
Okay, I'll be really quick. Okay, so you can get through all these slides because I feel like we have some good ones to still get through. Okay, so I would say the number one mistake is not sending any screening information out ahead of time, right? Like I just always tell my designers, like, don't get on a call until someone knows your price, because you don't have time. Like you truly don't, not today. We're still dealing with projects from 2020. Like you don't have time to get on the phone with clients or potential clients who can't afford your services, can't wait for your timeline, all of that. So number one mistake would definitely be getting on a call without sending out any preliminary information to the potential client, letting them know your pricing and your timeline for getting started.
Yeah, that's great. And another thing is when you're running a business that is really complex, like interior design businesses are complex. There's a lot of moving parts. Not having those processes in place, you're going to drive yourself crazy because it's too much work to do everything custom every step of the way. And there's no way, I mean, that somebody could remember all of that. Or, you know, if you expect somebody to come on your team and know all of the things that you're doing, there's just no way. You know, if you're going to work 24/7, be super stressed. So how do you recommend designers improve their proposal process?
Yeah, so with this one, I think there's a couple of ways. And again, I know we have a lot of slides to get through, so I'll try to be like, rapid fire.
You're good.
So I think one of the things is have a proposal template, right? Even if you are using a CRM, make sure your proposal or your scope of work is templated. So for example, if you do, let's say you're a full service design firm and you do, renovations, new builds, and you do full furnishing, styling, the whole shebang. Well, create an entire scope of work that has everything that you would do for a new build, like from starting with the architectural blueprint review to the electrical walkthrough to the selection of every finish, whatever. And then have all of your scope written out for the rooms that you do when you're doing a full service furnishing project, right? So what do you include, especially for flat fee designers? What do you include in that scope? Like detail it out specifically. Okay, this project is going to be the living room, the family room, and the kitchen. And for each of those, we're going to do a floor plan. We're going to do blah, 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 right? Detail out everything you're going to do. Does it include site visits? Does it include styling? Does it include like a rendering? What does it all include for each of those rooms? So I think one, having a master template, whether that's in like a Google Doc, in your CRM, whatever software you're using to send your proposals out, have that master template where you make a copy for every new client that comes through that you're sending a proposal to, and then you just delete whatever is not applicable. So that takes the proposal process down from like weeks to like 20 minutes. So that would be number one. Number two, don't make them wait for a proposal. Like I think it is our responsibility as service providers to give our people the information they need quickly because they want to get started, right? Like you guys know your customers, like when we want to do something in our house, like we want it yesterday. And so it's like when we talk to you and we want to hire you, we want to hire you right now because we know the time is ticking, right? We know it's a long process. We know like we want to get moving forward. We know delays and all of that. So I think tightening up the timeline from when you speak to them or do your consultation to when you are giving them their proposal, try to make that as tight as possible. And one of those ways is going to be to template it, right? Have a template for your scope and have your contract ready to go. So it's very easy. Like you get back from your meeting, you plug in their scope, you look at the pricing, do your calculation, and then send it over to them. So that would be the other thing that I think, like, again, timeline. So what I see with a lot of my designers is, 2 to 3 days, like that would be like my max that I would recommend. So I know that might not be possible. You might be doing additional investment estimates and things like that in your proposal, but I think you've got to consider the client. They're like ready to go. And for the most part, they're ready to go, right? And you want to like kind of, strike while the iron's hot. That sounds terrible, but you want to get them what they want. So again, like, because what happens is if they have too much time, they could be like, well, do I really need it? We could probably just work with a builder's designer, or we could probably just do it on our own, or you just don't want to have those doubts creep in. So when they're the most excited, after they've just spoken to you, they've had a great experience with your firm, get them that proposal as quickly as possible, and then let them know after you talk to them, okay, I'll have your proposal ready in 2 to 3 days, or 1 to 2 days, or within 1 week, right? Like, so that would be some tips that I recommend for proposing, for improving the proposal process.
Those are so important. In fact, I probably, I don't know, a while ago was wanting to hire somebody for some services, and like, I really loved their work, but I couldn't get on their calendar. And then like, they wouldn't give me an estimate. And then finally, when I got an estimate, like I couldn't even figure out how to pay.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, if this is such a mess, their process for just even trying to, start working with them, what is the project experience going to be like? So I was like, I cannot work with this company. I had to, go find somebody else who was exceptional at like processes. And that's who I hired. I also want to add that for a lot of the creatives, I know, like I talk to so many designers, they're not really writers and they really struggle with that. But they have all this stuff in their head. So like the biggest tip I could say to you is on your phone, there's so many apps that you can speak into, and it's gonna type it out as you speak. And they're so good now that you could just record your processes. So, as you're working on things, you could start, speaking into your phone, recording them, and then have somebody else who's your, on your team, organize them and actually put the process together. So if you're not a person that's a checklist person, which most of you probably are not, just think of starting to document them with like your phone on an app, and make sure the app doesn't just keep it in like voice, that it actually types it out. So you have the document, then you can send that to a VA, a team member, somebody else, like one of your subcontractors, or, like marketing team, or like Katie, and then they can help organize that process with you. So I can't stress that enough. Make it easy for you. If you hate doing it a certain way, do it, like find a way that's easy for you. And even if you just can only get 50% there, have somebody else set up the rest.
Yep.
So, what mistakes do you see designers make when a project first starts?
Yeah, so we kind of already talked on this a little bit, is I would say not having an onboarding process. So, well, 2 things. One is onboarding a client before they've paid and signed. That's very confusing. I've been a client that has received onboarding materials before I signed up, and I was like, oh, so wait, we're already working together. I haven't even paid or signed. Like, I feel a little bit of pressure, like, oh, now I have to work with them because they already onboarded me. So that is one. So always get them to sign the contract and pay the first installment before you onboard them and welcome them into your company. Number 2 would be onboard them, have a formal onboarding process, send them an email that like within a day or two, that's like, welcome to my company. I'm so excited to be working with you. Here are, here's what you can expect during this process. Here's your welcome materials. And this details everything we're going to need from you, timelines, et cetera. So having that email and that onboarding process is so important. The other thing I would say when a project first starts, and I hear this from a lot of my clients, is they're like, we start and it it almost like fizzles out before we even get started. So with that onboarding process, right, you might not be starting. So the client might pay and sign, and then you start their project in 4 months. Well, onboard them right away, right? Let them start preparing, let them start gathering inspiration, let them fill out your questionnaire, let them really think about what they want. Then when you actually are like, okay, we're starting your project now, it's, May 1, send an email. Okay, hey, we're starting your project in a week. We're looking forward to it. Let's schedule a kickoff meeting, kickoff call, a client meeting, client interview, whatever, something to let them know, okay, now we're starting, right? So, and also let them know in those welcome materials, when you first onboard them, okay, you're not going to really hear from us, but we have you scheduled for your kickoff meeting on May 1. So in the meantime, work on all of this, review it, refine, et cetera. But we'll reach out before your kickoff meeting to let you know, how to prepare and what you can expect. So they are they're getting these things from you. You're guiding them already. You haven't even started working with them. So I'd say having that formal onboarding process and then having some sort of like a kickoff meeting or even just like a kickoff call where you review their questionnaire, you look at their inspiration images, you just check in, make sure you're in alignment with what they're wanting to do. Make sure nothing's changed since you first put together their scope. Just a check-in call again to really like kick off the project. Okay, this kicks off the project, which kicks off the timeline, which kicks off the next design fee, whenever that's going to be due, all of those things. So those would be some mistakes I see designers not doing, and not that they don't know, not that they're like not doing them intentionally. They know something's missing from their process because it just feels really like confusing and clients have a lot of questions. And did we start? Did we not start? So I think having those 2 steps in your process will be really helpful for letting your client know what to expect and setting that expectation right from the start.
Yeah. And it definitely positions you as being like a more professional business. I do think that, people, when they think of interior designers, I had somebody say to me recently, like they had no idea the value of an interior designer. And, I think that there's a lot of people out there thinking that interior designers are kind of doing it as a hobby. So you really need to position yourself as a professional in order to build that trust and to charge more for your services.
Yep.
I think it's so important. I couldn't believe it. Somebody said to me actually just recently that all interior designers are living off their husband's incomes.
Oh my
I was like, oh my gosh, you don't know what you're talking about at all.
Yeah.
But it did really hit me hard, because I'm like, the perceived value, you really need to make sure that you come off super professional, and those processes and your branding and everything is going to help you do that. So people understand that you are a really professional business and you're offering a ton of value and you're providing like amazing services, but make sure that you're communicating that. I'm going to skip through a couple of the slides, but I want to bring up this one, and then please, we just have a couple minutes left, so please put any questions you have into the chat, so we make sure we answer them.
Yep. So I think this is such a great question, and I'll just jump right in.
Yes, perfect.
So I think setting boundaries, again, huge, right? Like you guys are still dealing with clients from like 2 years ago who are on your 2020 pricing, or maybe they're even on like 2019 pricing. So it is so important to set those boundaries. One, set them with your time, right? Like, when are you working? What are your business hours? What are your response hours? Put it in your contract. Like what I see is that designers will have it maybe on their website, or they'll let clients know, here's how you can email me, et cetera. But what they don't do is they don't put it in the contract, right? Like, these are my business hours. Here's when you can expect a response. Responses received outside of these hours will be returned in subsequent business hours. No texting. I have so many clients who are like, oh my gosh, like the text messages on a Saturday morning are killing me. So have that. Don't, first of all, say no texting, right? No texting. We will use text messages for, quick turnaround situations, if a trade's at your house or we need a quick response. However, we do not use that for project correspondence. So that would be another one. Put that in your contract, and then take it to the next step and put in your design questionnaire as these are our business hours. This is how we respond. We don't use text messages. Click here to let us know you understand this policy. So again, put it in there again, right? So the hours, the communication methods, and then sticking to those methods. Like, don't respond to text messages. Send them an email during business hours. Hey, I saw your text, but I'm going to go ahead and keep this in email so we don't lose any of your information, because it's really important. I want to make sure the whole team has access. So
that's so
those are my super high level.
Yeah, I want to make sure if people have to jump off that we kind of go over the last couple of slides. Thank you so much. So much good content. So if you, we offer a free brand website SEO audit. So if you're interested in that, it's an audit and a consultation, super high value. If you want, you're thinking about getting help and you want some clarity on what needs to change, then book that. And I'll put Katie's information here. If you, she's offering a free client experience blueprint. So you can, sign up for that right here. In fact, let me grab the link there. And thank you so much, Katie, for joining us today. Such good content. And does anybody have any questions? Taylor, did you see anybody's questions we need to answer? Or if so, put them in chat so we make sure that we get them. Gail, Katie's information, you can go to our website. This was so good.
Oh, thank you. This was, I mean, I could just go on, and I apologize. Deborah even was like, okay, we only have an hour. Like, that'll be good.
How about a day? We'll just talk about this for a whole day.
I know, right? Right. I know. I feel like I thought for sure the COVID would slow me down a little bit. So I appreciate everybody staying through to the end. And any questions, of course, you can always email me as well. I love to, give generously to my, to anybody who asks. Because again, I know that it's hard when you're starting out and you're overwhelmed, and there's just so much. So always
I know you help people so much in that client experience, and we're really big in processes. So marketing, and there's a little bit of overlap because like, do you have an online calendar, and when they book an appointment, do they get, do you have an automatic like email, text message, appointment reminders to make sure they show up that are branded so they look professional? And, it's like a whole combination of, there's so many ways you can improve your client experience.
Oh, for sure. Well, and I think too, with kind of just one more thing with what you had kind of said with the marketing and the comments that you received, like, oh, designers, they're living off their husbands, which like makes me crazy. Because like I have designers who are the breadwinners and they're more successful than their husbands. And
exactly.
So like, come on, that's so rude. And also as women and wives and mothers, we support our husbands, and we don't get paid. So, so I think with the marketing aspect, it's really important to show your process, right? And if you don't know your process, how can you show that? But what that does is it lets your potential clients know, like, whoa, they do all of that. Like, I didn't even know that was part of it. And now they're a little bit afraid. Like, I can't do this by myself now. I need to hire a professional, right? So I think it's almost like a little bit of a disservice when you just show those beautiful portfolio images, because then it does look like it's just all easy. Like, oh, all you did was go shopping, you went to the mart and you went to High Point and you shopped. Well, that's easy. But if you're like, look at the plans we had to sketch out, look at the renderings we had to do, look at the behind the scenes of an install day, look what our car looked like when it was packed to the brim, look how dirty we were covered with lint after pulling fabrics. Like, show those parts, not on the beautiful feed in your stories or something like that, but definitely I think people want to see that, right? Because interior design feels very luxury and it can be a little intimidating. And I've had some clients who are like, I don't want full service in any of my branding, because that scares my potential clients off because they don't think they're luxury or full service. So you want to still be approachable, relatable, where they're like, oh, interior design is for me. I don't have to be a famous celebrity to have an interior designer. I don't need to be super fancy or really stylish. Like it's approachable. And, you know, so I think it's important to show the behind the scenes and the process, and you can do it in a beautiful way for your feed, but also in a little bit of a messier way in your stories and, you know, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important. And I always think of running a business as three, like put it into 4 different buckets. So there's marketing, sales, operations, finances. You need to think about your customer experience through all 4 of those buckets. You know, what is your, you know, customer experience when it has to do with marketing? How could you improve that? Or sales or it's not just when they're starting to work with you. It's like the whole process, and even like after they stop working with you, you know, that customer experience is just so important. Holly said that she tried to get the blueprint and she got an error.
Let me look.
So can you put your email into, Katie, why don't you just put your email into the chat there?
Okay.
And anybody who wants to.
Yeah, I just checked it.
Yeah,
I will. Okay, sorry about that. I had just checked it and I thought it was okay, but
no problem. There you go. So Holly, feel free to reach out and get that. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. Super good conversation, Katie. Love what you're doing, and I love systems and processes. And I just want to add one thing too, so I've been in business for over 30 years, for a ton of years, like maybe the first 25 years. I always worked super hard and I was always trying to grow my business, but I never could get to that. Like I never could get ahead. I mean, I ran a really good business, did great work, but I couldn't grow. I couldn't grow my revenue. I couldn't grow my team. Then like 8 years ago, when I brought Ashley on and we started like setting up systems and processes and other team members and stuff, that was the key that I was missing, that I wasn't doing for so many years. So if you're wondering why I'm like so incredibly passionate about it, like I tried super hard to grow, but I wasn't doing the systems and processes. So I never got anywhere. So, you know, since working on those systems and processes for the last 8+ years with Ashley and our team, oh my gosh, it's just amazing, the growth. And that's going to be the same for you. Like you absolutely, it's the one thing you really have to invest in to get to that next step. So, all right.
I agree. Yeah. And I'm sorry about this link. I'm not sure what's going on. It's set up properly. So I can, if anybody wants to email me, or you can just go to my website and click through there and download it. But I'll look at the link again. So Debra, what's the best way for me to send that over to you if something is wrong with it?
Yeah. Why don't you just, if people want it, just contact Katie with her email address right there.
Okay. Yeah, and, sorry. Here I am, like make things easy, and then my whole website.
It's no problem. Things happen, you know.
All right.
It's no problem. So they have a way to get to a hold of you. So we'll work it out. Oh, Taylor just put in the new link. Try that one.
Okay. Yeah.
So try to click. Maybe it's because I didn't put the whole website link.
Oh, in. Maybe. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So
great. Thanks,
try
Taylor.
the link that Taylor just put in chat. I'll hang out here. Okay. Perfect.
That works. Okay.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Right, sorry.
The full link. It was on me.
Right, but yeah, if anybody has questions, I'm always, you know, I'm always happy to answer in like a DM or email or anything like that. So I clearly could go on for days about.
Okay. So. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm gonna end the meeting and feel free to join other webinars. Okay. Bye, Katie.
Right. Bye,
everybody.